Kia ora, this program is brought to you by Wellington Access Radio. Wellington Access Radio, make your voice heard.
And welcome to the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM with you're here in the studio today with Eddie and Nani.
Hello.
Bit of a shift up from previous weeks. This week's social media superstar is Leah. Hello. One moment. Try now.
Oh, hello.
She's back. She's back in the studio.
From outer space.
I hobbled in on my crutch. And I'm going to share my amazing filmography skills with you today. Yes.
That's fun. So Leah's obviously been out for the last couple of weeks, so we're really glad to have her back in the studio.
Welcome back.
Before we kick into it all, a couple of kind of brief announcements. So Zanaka tonight is having their winter fashion exhibition. It's at Zanaka on Taranaki Street. Comes with a complimentary glass of bubbly, which is ideal. Go to the Zanaka Facebook page. They've got an event and they've got the ticket link. There's only like 35 tickets, so they're running out. So you get in fast, get in quickly.
If you want to be able to squeeze in that door and watch the amazing Jessie dressed up.
Oh, is it Jessie tonight?
Jessie's gonna be dressed up in her gears.
Yes.
Looking fabulous as usual. Get in there and get your tickets now.
Perfect. And then the other thing tonight is Double G Make a Banger, long time friend of the radio of the show. He has another amazing hip hop lineup tonight at Valhalla.
Oh, hey.
12 acts.
Oh, wow. At Valhalla?
12.
I know, that was mad, right?
Yeah. So 12 acts, one night of pure madness and energy, unlike anything you've ever seen before. So actually, it's 11 o'clock till 3 a.m. So you can get tickets available on Cosmic. So actually, you've got quite a nice kind of like evening of kind of, I guess like it's an evening of blacktivity. You've got a really nice evening of blacktivity. You can hit up Zanaka, go to the fashion show, go to the pub, have a drink, and then hit up Valhalla and enjoy some fantastic hip hop.
And there's something happening at El Barrios tonight. I think it's a Cuba thing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get time to really check it out, but yeah.
Sweet. So I'm guessing it's that time of year, like because Jamaican Independence Day is today. I think it's just the Independence Day time of year.
Right.
I think that I've noticed like all the Latin American and all the Caribbean countries have their Independence Days.
They said, let's just do this all together, eh?
Yeah.
Right. Colonizer out.
You scared me, colonizer.
So moving into this, to introduce our guest today, we have in studio Octavious Jones.
Yes.
They are the Wellington and the LGBTQ plus rep for Black Creators Aotearoa. They are a writer and a poet.
Yes.
Poet.
I try to be.
And a full right scholar. So how are you doing? How's your day been?
I'm good. Yeah, the day's been good. Wellington can be a mixed bag in terms of weather, so it's been a nice day.
Well, fantastic. Welcome in, Octavious.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again too, my friend.
Yes.
We did a play together, y'all.
We did. It was my first ever play. That was my first time acting on stage since I was 15.
You did good.
Thank you.
Yo, so give us, just to start us off, give us a rundown on the Octavious Jones experience thus far.
Thus far, yeah, okay. I'm a little old, so now I'm playing.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't saying that,
But hey everyone, my name is Octavious. I don't care. any pronouns you use for me, I'm fine with. Just put some respect on my name, and I'll love you back.
Yes.
But I'm from Los Angeles, California. That's where I was born. And then I grew up around San Bernardino County in California. So it's just about like an hour, well, without traffic, but LA traffic is 2.5 hours outside of LA. But grew up there. And then I did my undergrad in Wisconsin, Madison.
Oh, wow.
And it was a journey. I went because they gave me free money for school.
That's
good.
Hey, if you know America and school debt and what it does to you, you will do anything for free money.
I remember when I was in the States, like one year of my friends, like uni accommodation, food was my entire student loan for like 3 years of university.
Wow.
And it was like...
It's crazy when you look at the differences in price. And friends, even just from undergrad, and you know how at that time too, you don't even know what you are or what you want to do. So you're jumping around. So they would spend 5 years and come out with like $60,000 in debt.
Oh my God.
It was hectic.
No, that's not nice.
Not at all. But I did that. Was studying again, trying to find myself as well. I went in to study medicine and tried my best to stay in that field, but it was
Octavious.
Dr. Jones. Well, because at the time too, growing up, people would call me Doc Ock because of Spider-Man.
I know.
So,
I really wanted to do like an intro, like pretending to be like J. Jonah Jameson. It's like, our guest here today is a maniacal scientist. He's a virulent enemy of Spider-Man, Dr. Octavius.
I wish I was that way.
I know, right? Like, but people expect you as a black person to be like all spice. You're like, are you shit kidding me? I'm like traumatized and shy. Like, I have a face. It lasts about 30 seconds. It's my black face. And then I take it down a level and I stop embarrassing myself.
Right? Yeah. I wonder sometimes, do we allow ourselves to be introverts in our community?
Right?
I am an introvert, but I'm, a rehabilitated or converted introvert.
Right?
You have to function in this world.
You do. And you get this thing where you have to kind of perform your blackness to a certain level. Yeah. And there was even this awesome music video from I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, which was black people performing blackface. It's exactly that. Where you've got to be extroverted and jazz hands, but actually you're tired. Tired is what you 90% are.
Right? I remember watching that Spike Lee movie, Bamboozled.
Yes.
About that. Yeah.
That's the one.
I was like, oh my, I hope this is not my life. Because I was young when I watched it. And I do it sometimes. It's not my full-time job, but it's still part-time, sadly.
So we hit the uni years. So the college years. Like what comes after the college years?
Yes. So I in college I knew I wanted to do community work. So and I wanted to do international work. So I actually studied Swahili and African languages and literature along with pre-med.
Dope.
Because I had just heard and knew from my own community, a lot of the doctors, they don't know our culture.
Yes.
So the way which they interact with us isn't culturally sensitive or culturally knowledgeable, and they can't do the best work that they can do. And I wanted to do my best work.
Wow.
So after uni, I was like, should I do medical school? I don't want to do it in America. There's too many white people and it's hard. And they even do a thing in medical school called pimping in America.
Oh my God.
They keep you up for, between 24 to sometimes 36, 48 hours and just work you and break you down in terms of, making sure that you're stupid and you don't know anything.
Oh, wow.
And then they build up your God complex. But it was the same thing they do in the Army. And I was like... I specifically didn't choose the Army or the Navy for a reason. I don't want to be broken down. Life already does that.
I'm quite happy. Kind of just not collapsing.
Is that a kind of medical hazing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you see it in everything from fraternities and sororities. And I've seen it in every field, to be quite honest. Even my defense for my master's thesis and the defense I'll do for my PhD, people talk about that too, the pummeling that you're supposed to get. And it's just, quote unquote, part of the process to make you stronger.
I can kind of see you needing that if you were white and you grew up in an upper middle class. But as black people are we started with that. Can we skip that bit?
Thank you. Right?
Ultimately, it's just what it is that point in all with academia. So there's the institutions. It's just how it's done. I'm just but it's not. it's not good. Like, it's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah, and and I did my master's in ethnic studies and women's studies. So I did it in a field completely different than what I had grown up in, thinking, because we all talk about Audre Lorde and, embodiment and feminism and treating our bodies and each other right and with love. But as soon as that defense started, everyone switched, and I was like, "Wait, am I in a group of my peers with the white supremacists?"
Yeah, right.
And not to say that they were, but it was that era too, where it became a barrier between us that I had to cross. Like, and again, a hazing. I had to walk through the fire.
Yes.
I found it really interesting that you did women and gender studies. Like,
Yeah.
I remember I did it at Victoria, and you never saw men in the class.
And that was, and I always get that question, or explain why you here, what you doing, and it's too long to explain. But in essence, I grew up raised by women. Women raised me, and I heard them my entire life talk about their experiences, realizing how different it was than mine. It saddened me that to this day, and no matter what country I've been in, and I've been in several, I have not met a group of women who haven't experienced gender or sexual violence. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what does it mean that that's a part of your experience? And what does it mean that I can be existing with you and not see it or know it or haven't been taught to understand it or to empathize with it? And I didn't want to be the type of man that those women were in my life who I love were complaining about. Like, I wanted to be in relationship with my mothers, with my grandmothers, with my sisters, with my future partners, with future children potentially. And so for me, it was like anything I do in life. If I don't know something, I'm a seeker and a student, just by nature. So I want to learn. So I went into that space to learn, to learn how to love.
That thirst for learning and that thirst for love is one of the excelsior parts of the Black experience that I think is not highlighted enough. And I think you are highlighting it in your existence.
Yeah.
And snaps.
Right? And it's who we are. I'm not doing anything new. What my studies taught me, and especially going back to Africa, is that that's always who we were. We always respected and knew about the queer people in our community, the women, the children, the elders, the people with disabilities. It's only this newfangled, when we got into contact with colonization and imperialism, that we began to have these hierarchies of power. Where some people had a voice and some people didn't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like one of my favorite authors, Marlon James, like he talks about, like, there's a quote from I think he's quoting someone else, but then he talks about, it's like Africa and was like in a lot of ways without I guess, like, kind of the missionary and the colonization side of things, would be at the forefront of queer movements in the world. Like that's he was like without that kind of infectious kind of influence coming in.
The interesting thing is, like, you go to Japan and you learn that the race relation there is just so different. Like, and suddenly you, a Black person used to a certain format of racism, are like, wow, okay, this is interesting. Yeah. And I find that there's something very similar in, like, many of the African countries where the Eurocentric narrative around queer struggles doesn't exist there in the same way. Yeah. So when you introduce it, you're actually introducing more queer phobia to the dynamic, because the one that's there is like, oh no, of course we just accept a woman who I suppose transition is not even the word anymore. We didn't think of you as a woman. You said you were a man. You walk around like a man. We accept you as such because you're manifesting it truthfully. Yeah. And vice versa for, trans femme to mem, but you just wouldn't have thought of it that way. Yeah. If you're holding it correctly, we're not going to think about it. And I think that there's also a stereotype. I don't know if you've experienced this, which is, as Black people, we have a lot of queer phobia internalized, especially as Black Americans historically.
Africans as well.
Everyone. Caribbean. Yeah. And it's from the Caribbean, I find it really interesting because, like, at the base of, like, some Jamaican patois, it's like, for, like, referring to people as them man there. And it's one of those things that come out as, like, it's interesting that it's almost something that they couldn't quite stamp out, like from the linguistic roots of like things of Creole and patois languages that have kind of carried forth, is they can't quite stamp out, the use of they pronouns. Yeah. Well, that's that sort of thing. It's almost these, you can kind of find these hints of what master couldn't get rid of.
Yeah. I love having Hugh here as well, just speaking on the Black queer experience, because I'm always like, so as a Black queer woman who's queer, loudly, where everyone can see me, and like it's always like you feel a little bit isolated, and when you get another queer person in the room, you're like, yeah, that's
family.
Right.
Yeah, especially in Aotearoa too, because that's the other thing, that we all have to negotiate and have in some ways. What do we present first? What do people accept first? What do we fight for first? Do I have to fight for my Blackness, my queerness, disability? I'm dyslexic. Right. Which battle do I take? And will people who I'm with now, whether it be in academia or my lovers, will they accept all of me?
Exactly.
Can I present all of me? Yeah. And all the flaws too, and all the glory and beauty of who we are and where we come from. I accept too all the narratives of the mistakes we've made, because that eases the burden of the mistakes I make, throughout my life, because I am not perfect. My walk in queerness and Blackness has not been perfect. No. My walk towards women has not been perfect. I made a lot of mistakes, hurt a lot of women in my life. Men too. Queer people too.
Yes.
Children, disabled people. Yeah. But my core value has always been, I want to do better and I need to do better.
Yes.
So that's been motivating me forward.
Well, that's really beautiful. And that self-acceptance, and when you get to that space where you're not abandoning yourself over every flaw, everything that's not going to be accepted, when you get to that space of like, look, I'm not going to abandon me. So I probably won't abandon you.
Yeah, right.
That transition internally is huge, and it's hard, and you won't be consistent in it. So it's nice to hear you talk about that. You know?
And for a long time, it was easy to throw away other people because I threw away myself.
Yes, right.
So when I held on to myself, now it's easier to hold on to others.
Right. And those parts of yourself, like, you get to this point where you're like abandoning more and more and more of yourself until you're in this tiny circle. And like all you are is only what you think will be accepted, which is not even true. Yeah. And then like one day you're just like, fuck it. Fuck it. No.
Right.
Yeah, no, so I find it, I find it interesting, like, especially when you said, I guess, on the point of, I guess, trying to work out, like, how do I take all these different bits of my identity? Because I know, like, especially in Black spaces, that was, like, when I first, because where I grew up was very isolating. So when I first was starting around to be around other Black people, it was always around this point of, like, do I mention that I'm bi? Because, because I'm just, like, it was one of the points where everyone was, especially, like, from the religious standpoint, it's always the people talking about going to church or always having church on Sunday. It always became that point of just like, I don't know. And one of my best friends now like had the same kind of thing with like, both of us were like, we don't know if this is going to be a point that if we bring this up, like, is this going to change our ability to connect with people on this front? Like,
I think those,
and also you got to remember you were in Cromwell.
I was in Gore. Like,
that's it.
like, I think there's this thing, like one of the parallels with the queer community and the Black community is like being straight passing, right? Yeah. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. Like, so in like, for a long time I had a buzz cut and I had flat chest. So I was straight passing because people thought I was a man, right? Yeah. And then one day, and then they'd talk to me and like, they'd be like, that man has an awfully effeminate voice. And then like, one day I'm going through like basically the trans experience where I'm like, I think I want to be soft and feminine, right? Like, and so you go and you make that jump, and more people are mistaking me now for like, what are you, than they are. And then you finally make it, you're like, I've landed, I'm now feminine.
Right? And it's in vogue.
Right? And then so you have that like that, but for a long time you be able to be straight passing when you sort of understand the like, white passing, Black passing experience, when, you're in this dangerous space where if you were to just sort of say, hi, I'm a queer woman, like you might get your ass killed and suddenly, or at the very least abandoned. Yeah. And it's in those spaces that can like make, like, have you found that too? Like just like in those spaces where suddenly you're finding your tongue's just locked in your mouth and you're afraid to say, oh, so my ex-girlfriend,
Yeah. That's been my whole life. My whole life has been navigating that. And to be honest, only in the most recent years have I come to have like both a language, both a sense of mana, like, a foundation in my own spiritual practice, my own personal belief, going through work around trauma and PTSD, that I can name myself now and try to communicate myself to others. Yeah. But it's a game in that it's supposed to be playful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am evolving. I didn't know what non-binary was.
Right?
And people get you either gay or straight.
Yeah.
You know, if you bi, and we had the language in America, you were undercover brother. And you had the potential to give your female partners HIV. So you were, you know, a spawn. Like you could not be bisexual. Yeah. You were questioning, but you will figure out what you were.
Yeah.
You can dip in both hot honey pots.
Yeah.
And so now to have this whole language where you can be demisexual and pansexual, I was like, oh shoot, okay. I get more options to like, now I can better negotiate.
And it's interesting, there's definitely been people that I've seen, like one of my favorite writers, Grant Morrison, had the thing where they were like, when I was growing up, like like I said, the language didn't exist. Like, and I think announced that they were non-binary last year, and I was like, oh, this is like, because I've always kind of felt this. I just didn't have the vocabulary, didn't have what was needed to actually define myself and describe myself. Like,
and my community didn't have the understanding or the definitions of this vocabulary to then accept the reality of myself, that I'm not the binary. Yeah. I'm not, you know, in these prescribed norms of you have to be this. Because that's the danger too, I feel, and do see within the queer movement even now. Yes. Where we have to put a label or you have to have an acronym. Yes. Some of us don't. And some of us do not need it. That's another thing too. Regardless of who I have sex with or who I'm in relationship with, I am a human being at the end of the day. Yeah. And so are all of we. Oh. So if that can be the foundation of the relationship, I don't need to know more about you top or bottom, you got a strap on or not, you know, what you going to get surgery. Yeah. You know, that's you. Yeah. That can be in the development of a relationship, but that's not how I need to know you, and that's not how I need to respect you. And I think we need to move towards that and understanding that too. I actually really love the co-movement of some of us are like, I refuse a definition and a label. And I actually really like the fact that some people are like, oh no, my autism's going off and I need every classification and I need them all clean and organized and color-coded, right? Like I actually really like that there are both camps, and I'm enjoying that I have gained a lot from the labels and as people have explored them in the years, you know, on Twitter, Tumblr, etc. But I have spent the whole time refusing to adopt them. So it's wonderful hearing somebody else who has that stance where it's like, oh, thank you for these labels. No, I'm not going to wear a single one of them. Right?
I find it it's really interesting for me too, being a Gen X. Yeah. X-Men. That there are all these labels, because I got really confused. I'm like, when did we become she, her, them, they, and that? Yeah. Like, what is this? Like, and I know there's a generation that are older that don't understand it. Yes. Because we're being given just those binary male or female sort of situation. And I find it a little bit confusing. I know some of my older girlfriends are like, what do you mean they're women? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because it's and I guess there's another debate that's going to be going on there about that somewhere. But I'm finding it all a learning. It's all a learning experience, and you just have to sit back and just listen and just take it in and go, well, how is this? For me, it's like, okay, this is new, but I just got to take it in. You do, and this is, in America, they did not give us a good understanding of history. So I hated history growing up, often because it was, white, about wars and stuff, or empire. I don't care about that. Yeah. But in my own exploration, and I don't know if you saw, Questlove just directed a new documentary called Summer of Soul. And it was about, Is it on Netflix?
Oh shoot, it's out in like festivals and theaters. Okay. So it's gonna come here, I think, in theaters maybe in September.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so it's coming. So you should check it out. But it's about a black festival that happened alongside when Woodstock was happening. Right. But it was to address like all the issues of that time. And what I found like crazy was that during one of the songs and performances, they had the moon landing happen. Oh wow. And they were interviewing white people, and they were like, yeah, this is a great accomplishment for human society, and it brought us all together. And the black people that they interviewed at the black event, they were like, yeah, it's nice that a white man went, or white people went to the, but we still got crime, we still got poverty, we still, and to think even now with the BLM, with TERFs and women's rights, with queerness also being on the chopping block in different totalitarian governments right now, that we have certain white men going to outer space.
Yeah.
And white is on the moon.
There was actually one guy, I don't know if it was a UN meeting, I just recently saw it on, and he called all of that out. He's going like, while we still got all these problems on Earth, it's very nice that the very wealthy people can, catch a ride to wherever.
Well, that's the Tribe Called Quest song, like space program. It's just like everyone and it's the weird premise of people like with like, if Earth is inhospitable to humans, we can just go into space. And like, they're not like if you're like
what white people nonsense is this?
If you're anything but like outside of the 5%, like there's no room for you. Like,
right? You won't be going anywhere.
or if you do, you're going there for mining operations. That's what you're going there for.
Exactly. Like that is one of the things that's more realistic considering like I spent 10 years of mining.
Yeah.
And when I see that, I'm like, that is the only reason, because it's all about resources, isn't it?
That really is.
Yeah.
All right, should we have a quick break with a bit of a tune?
I reckon. Get into it.
Well, we got Starlight by Yola. This is Octavius's pick, so I'll get him to introduce it.
Yeah, so Yola is a beautiful, beautiful singer. She has a tiny desk that you can watch on YouTube, but she's from the UK, but actually is inspired by soul and country. So I just love that as we talk and converse as part of the diaspora, we have always been in communication across, geographies, across culture, language. So I picked this song because it exemplifies that for me. Hearing someone from the UK sing in a way and with a twang that you get from America is just beautiful.
Perfect. This is Starlight by Yola.
Trying hard to deny
five because.
And we are back on the Blackhouse, 106.1 FM. You're here with Eddie and Nani and Leah and Octavius.
Hello.
That was Starlight by Yola. That was a tune. That was like
Right? You could dance to it.
Oh, I want to slow dance to that with somebody who has really big arms. I'm just saying.
it's like really big arms, slow dance energy for that shit.
Right?
So there's another T-shirt slogan. There we go.
Big arms, slow dance.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess like as we mentioned before, you're a Fulbright scholar.
I was. So I came to New Zealand on a Fulbright fellowship or scholarship in 2019.
Yeah.
But it was for a year, so I completed that, and then I applied for a PhD at Victoria University of Wellington to continue doing some of that work that had started with the Fulbright. So now I'm a PhD student.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Can I just ask, what exactly is I hear that word all the time,
Yeah,
a
what Fulbright?
Yeah, what is a Fulbright scholar?
Fulbright is just one other program that gives you money to do what you want to do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's from the U.S. government, and it gives you scholars, so people who have, I think, at least a bachelor's degree, to go out and do research in another country.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like I guess it'd be like the American equivalent of like a Rhodes scholarship from the UK.
Yeah, and it's an exchange program. So they're New Zealand Fulbrighters, so New Zealanders can go to America to study. So there's some now at Harvard, MIT, NYU.
That's what Guled
Guled has.
Guled's one.
I met him before he
Okay.
left.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
And my Swahili teacher in undergrad, she was a Fulbright scholar. So they often do that for like languages or special interest.
Yeah.
They'll bring teachers of particular languages and have them be teachers. And so you can also be a Fulbright English teacher in their countries if you want to.
If anybody's listening out there, I really want somebody to be a Fulbright scholar teacher in Swahili because I'm tired of being the only Tanzanian in the world that doesn't know how to speak Swahili. So, I speak what you call broken pigeon Swahili.
Yeah.
Me
I
too.
know what you're saying. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
I just can't respond. That's all.
It's the grammar. That's the one that does it. Like, got a vocabulary, no grammar.
Yeah.
But it's phonetic, so Swahili is easier than like Igbo or Yoruba in that the way it looks on the page is how it sounds, which is what I love about it.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. Like, my son's name, I gave him a Swahili name. And what I was looking for was something that, okay, I'm going to be in New Zealand. I want the people around him to be able to pronounce it, right? And I found that the pronunciation in Swahili is very similar to Māori, except that Māori has a couple of consonants like NG and no, they actually have that in Swahili, do they? I don't think they have WH, but they do have an N, an NM, not an NG and an MW. So they do have that double consonant thing in Swahili that has a way of pronouncing like Māori. So, but even with that, they still stuff it up.
They will. Look, if you haven't, my name has 2 syllables. If they're messing that up, they will do anything.
Yeah. And I wondered about that too. And to be honest, it's something I had to unlearn. I always thought I was bad at languages coming from America. And I didn't do well in my Swahili classes at uni. Yeah. But when I was able to go to the country and immerse myself, guess what? I was really good at it.
Yes.
It was being out of my own bubble.
It's
a cultural thing too.
Yeah.
Like America is very much about we are the culture, you need to learn us, we don't need to learn you. And in that environment, it's so hard to embrace difference, to hear difference.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, or at least I hear about it from, Pakeha or white New Zealanders as well, that they kind of have from the British and often from empires.
Yeah.
When you have that sense of power, and again,
you don't need to.
You don't need to.
Yeah.
Also, I think the big thing that comes up with language is how much, I guess, the American education system and the American language teaching system influences the rest of the world. Because when I was in Brazil, trying to learn Portuguese, the thing I really, really needed was vocabulary I needed, and I essentially needed people to be conversing. Part of what I did English language teaching as part of my degree, and that's one of the things they kind of broke down from the get-go was from the get-go was people need to be comfortable speaking. Like you need to, and the big thing that I always found when I was in Brazil, and then I did Portuguese studying when I was in the States.
Oh wow!
And the thing that came up was just like they kept saying it was all grammar focus, and then it was so rote learn bits of grammar. It was like, or like when we had to do speeches, it was pretend like you speaking. Pretend you're speaking like you're natural. Like try and make it as natural. Like act. But I'm like, isn't part of the thing here to be like to be actually getting people to feel comfortable to speak naturally and so that sort of things. And I think
they tell you to speak naturally, like actually your job is to help me feel comfortable.
And I think that's been one of the big things I've noticed with language learning, especially is that it's kind of like the American way of doing that, and maybe it's a Western way of doing that. But I've definitely picked it up in the States. Was with and a friend of mine in the States, like, this is just how languages are taught in the States.
It's horrible.
I think that the immersion experience is really important too, because like I was in Tanzania for a period of time, and I found that I felt more confident speaking in Swahili when I was there, and then you come back to New Zealand, and the Swahili is the Swahili that people learn in another country, Kenya, and it doesn't sound like where I've just come from. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I've just learned one kind of Swahili. Are you telling me there's another kind of Swahili out here?
Well, I mean, with almost every language out there, there's like the Queen's whatever. Like, I mean, especially
English does it too, right?
Well, like English, Swahili, I bet you, and like I find this in Japanese as well. It's like there's the Queen's Japanese, and then there's country hick Japanese, which is what I speak. And no matter what language, you will have that.
And it's interesting with English, because you see like English with this, like people say like the UK, like you look at the UK and there's that many variations of English. Like my family's from the West Country. Like my family are like, if you really want to talk about hick farmers, that's the stereotype of the West Country.
Yeah.
Like, but then you go into like, I guess what was the British Empire, into the English diaspora languages, and you see, okay, like, well, how did patois come up? So how does Nigerian pidgin come up? Like it's that kind of, as you go through, and it's a point of like, there is no real English, because England, like the UK itself, like England itself, has so many variants of it.
That's true, right? Like every different program you look at, there's another accent and another kind of use of the language.
They even have names for it, your Brummies and your Scousers, and
and as for that's the thing that comes down to it, is that if it's interesting, because when I was in Brazil, you had and especially when I've been overseas, like, and in language teaching settings, people, if you have a non-standard, so if you have a specific English accent, so if you were Brummie, or if you're from the West Country, or you were Welsh, like, and you have the variation in accent, that can disadvantage you, because you're seen to not have a standard English accent, so therefore you can't really teach it, because you're not teaching proper English.
No, you're a thug basically, as far as like anyone's concerned.
Which is why you send, like, I remember having a friend of mine who was born in Japan, was mixed race, Japanese English, but then went to like an English language school in Japan, and then spoke very, very, like, very proper. And that's their point. And it was like, and then there's me, where mine is like a mix of the West Country, some of that kind of upper class English, and London. And that's the thing for me, where suddenly she was like, it's really hard to place, because like, and I was like, I automatically picked up your voice, your accent has come from this particular type of English stream.
We got a little bit of that in New Zealand with the provinces, because living in Taranaki for so long, it's, I don't know what you call it.
Speed mumbling.
Yeah, is it speed mumbling?
Speed mumbling.
Yeah, like the provincial accent is quite different from like Wellington. I remember first hitchhiking down here, because that's what you used to do that back in the day. And walking in, I'm like, why is everybody so snobby?
Yeah.
Like everybody sounds so snobby. Like, what's going on? But it's just, I don't know what it is. It's something here.
Have you found, Octavious, that like when you're learning or speaking Swahili in your experience, like that they do have that North and South accent, like where they have the formal, taught in schools, and then people actually using it amongst themselves, where it's like all abridged and truncated?
Yeah, and even doing it now, trying to learn Tereo. But so in university, my teachers were from Tanzania. Tanzania. So they speak what it's called Kiswahili Sanifu, which is quote unquote proper, because that's where the books that the Swahili books were written up by like the missionaries and things. And then I did a year abroad in Kenya and stayed in Kenya for a year. So I was going and I'm like, oh, and this is the funniest thing too. So I would say samahani, which, and even in English, that's my go-to. Oh, sorry. Sorry for that. Sorry. Yeah. And people will look at me all weird. They were like, we don't say that here. We know you're not from here. Because if I didn't say anything, I could get by a little bit. Yeah. But, and so just that. So they speak more Sheng, which is like a mix, which is urban.
Yes, it's Ebonics for Swahili.
Yeah, Ebonics for Swahili. Yeah.
So it includes English, it includes Portuguese, it includes like a little bit German. Yeah. And it's different. So when I was in Nairobi, they would use certain code words that you would know, okay, you're from this region, you're good. But when I went to Mombasa and I lived there, and I would try to use the Nairobi to like blend in there too. They were like, no, we know you're not from here. And it's like, dang. So that's the thing, again, just like with gender, with languages too, there is no hard boundaries to languages. No. We do when we play with it. And the more we try to, the more frustrated and the harder it becomes. But and that's what I had to learn. I had to stop seeing learning a language as a job. Yes. It had to be playful. I had to laugh at myself. Yes. I had to be okay with people laughing at me. Yes. And I used to tell people I changed who I was in learning a language. And that's what it kind of does to you. You use a different... So in English, I would talk about some philosophy and racism and all these things. I can't do that in Swahili. No. I'm talking jokes. I'm talking basic things. I'm talking about the realities of life that we're both experiencing. And I was like, oh, this is another side of me that I don't often utilize or, get to show other people. So...
It's so beautiful seeing somebody else who's experienced that because I've learned a whole bunch of different languages. But I think the one that I expressed like the most was when I was learning Dutch. Dutch literally has a suffix for, no word for adorable, but a suffix for adorable. So if something's cute, oh, what a cute little mic. Oh, what a cute little, everything always looks so cute. And like, and only being able to express that things were pleasant and cute actually had a huge impact on, like, it's almost like in Dutch, I don't have depression. Like, I can't. I don't know how. Yeah. Like, and, so I'm speaking in Dutch and everything's, ik liefde van jou, like, it's just like, mind you, what a cute little shoes. And like, whilst I'm speaking that way. And it was similar in Japanese where like, I could only sort of express certain concepts, or that is to say, I speak very informal Japanese. Yeah. So it was always casual and fun and friendly, or it was philosophical, and it was exactly as you say. Suddenly, there's just sides of myself that were locked off to me in English that are now completely like there for me. Yeah. So it's cool hearing like that parallel of experience.
You are not alone.
No. You feel like it when you're black and you're like walking around in the streets, but then another black person walks by you and you get that black person like, we're smiling at each other. Right? Like two ships in the night.
All right, so perfect. I think we go to another song and then I want to ask you about black creatives in our kind of final 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Sweet.
I wanted to ask him about the doing that stuff you're doing with the sea.
Oh, with the sea.
Yeah, the sea study.
I would definitely get into it.
Yeah, and BCA. We'll do
BCA.
Yeah, we'll do both. We'll speed
we're going to do like 5 minutes on each. Okay. So the next song up is called It's Okay by Lion Babe and Ocean. Ocean are named after a duo named after the Yoruba goddess of love. They are really cool. They're like very Afrofuturistic. Yes. You'll love this.
Watch their music videos.
It's okay.
Only way is forward, there's no way to get back. even though I had the faith. It's gonna be hard every day, but it's okay. You gon' cry and scream sometimes, I swear that it's okay. You might doubt yourself, but you gon' do it anyway. It's not gonna be perfect, but I know that it's okay. It's okay, I get brighter every day. I'm the wave, I'm gon' pray, blessed in every single way. They gon' love, they gon' hate, they gon' try to tarnish my name. It's a sink to my fate, promise I'm gon' be okay.
And we are back on the Blackhouse, 106.1 FM. That was It's Okay by Ocean and Lion Babe. So yeah, but we lift off just before we lift off on your studies currently.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about like space and the oceans and all that sort of things. So I want to hear what your.
It's a segue.
It's a segue. I'm trying. Like
You're doing good. You're doing good. Let me slide on in with you, just like you slide into the ocean. So
but there we go.
It worked. Hey, it worked.
Yay.
A full immersive experience.
Like Jane.
I have always loved the ocean, yet, and I'm from California, LA, right? So we're close to it. Yet I was never allowed to actually fully immerse myself into it. And my love of it at the time was always seen as like something white. Like, oh, you trying to be white, or, you know, that's not what we do. Black people don't
We
swim.
don't do yoga.
Yeah.
We don't swim.
All this crap.
You
right?
can't fly.
But I held it for so long. And that's why I did medicine and other things. I was trying to do something for the community, do something to help, not something that was like in my heart. Only now have I gone back to the ocean, and it's been the best thing, and to be honest, the most important time right now with climate change.
Yeah.
So my research looks at the relationship that us and the African diaspora have with the ocean, and what is some of the cross-cultural knowledge that we can exchange, converse with those in the Maori community around their relationship to Moana as well. And it's looking at both a historical, present, and future tense around that relationship. And in my research, I found that Africans, believe it or not, had a wonderful and beautiful and intimate relationship with the ocean. We knew how to swim. And I found a book that was written by a scholar in America who actually found recordings in early missionary and trader journals that talked about the fact that they could not swim. They didn't really have a good swimming culture back where they came from in the UK. And they were amazed and used to call Africans dolphins and mermaids because they were so adept at swimming in the ocean. So I was like, wait, how do we get from, again, just like queerness, and we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
How do we get from having this intimate relationship to a space to now many of us don't swim and don't explore? You know, we get our feet wet, but I mean like knowledge where you can name an animal, that you know an ecosystem, that you can tell when your coral reef is deteriorating or not, that you can understand the swells and weather patterns so you aren't confused by a tsunami, you know, our earthquake and what happens, you know, with tidal waves and things like that. So my research looks at that. What is our historical relationship? What are we doing now, and what are the interactions with the ocean and aquatic spaces that we have? And then what are we passing on to future generations? What will our children know about themselves and about the oceans? And it's also predicated on the fact, too, that a lot of the places that I've been in Tanzania and America, here in Aotearoa, is by the water. We live by the water. So as the sea level rises, it's going to be what, you know, Waterworld did the Kevin Costner movie.
Exactly.
Y'all better know how to swim.
When I was in Australia, like, I used to get into surfing and boogie boarding a lot in Taranaki, the surf highway around Taranaki. And you've been doing some work up that way, haven't you? With they had a lot of, all of that stuff was happening before 96. I was actually there. And the people that you're probably talking to now, that were involved in all of that stuff before 96, they are the ones that I used to like be working with the women's centre and with women that were now running Tu Tamawahine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I came down here, and this was the first time I'd lived really far from, well, I felt like it was really far. It was only Newtown, but it felt like it was really far from the water, right? And I went first to Paikokariki. And that was where, me and my youngest son, we just spent all our time in Paikokariki before I moved into the city.
Well, I think that there's a lot of connection between, I have had the same experience as you in terms of, I'm a water baby. I literally just got myself a hot tub fixed up, and I've been living in that thing, right? So that full immersion, but, there is even a part of me who's kind of consciously aware that to be so emotionally attached to water, to the point where I'm like, I would not live in Middle America. I couldn't do it. That's too far from the ocean. I can't. Yeah. That relationship is not traditionally seen as Black within pop culture and pop culture media.
If more Black people did take up things in the water, I find it very stress releasing. Surfing was one of the best things I ever did to actually be calm and grounded. Boogie boarding has the same effect. But this that fear of the water, or that we don't do that sort of thing, is if people, I don't know, maybe it's that grounding in the element. Strangely enough, when I'm in the ground, underground in a mine, I have the same effect.
It's every ecosystem we're connected to. And that's why I always hate too, because people think just because I do the ocean, I'm not connected to whenua and to land. All of it matters to me. I love doing my walks in the forest and meditating and calling out and talking to the trees, but I love doing the same thing in the oceans. And I scuba dive. And I remember the first time I was in Mozambique, so we should go. They do Portuguese there. And I remember the first time I was going to go down into the water, and I almost said, this is not for me. Because I wasn't at the weight I was supposed to be. I hadn't swum in years. I had meant to practice, but I didn't have the opportunity to. So I was like, is this worth it? Am I doing it? Will I die? As soon as I hit the water and went down, I was like, I'm home. And that transformation, but the fear right before it too.
It's like the first time you catch a wave and you're right at the top of the face, and then you start coming down. You're like, what am I doing? And this is so great.
The first time I went sea kayaking, we had some family friends we'd go kayaking with, and the first time I've been in a kayak and riding and on waves, or the first time you flip a kayak. And it's scary. It's the rush, but it's fantastic.
I think there's also this thing, especially with, they talk about bikini bodies, but there's this hilarious thing where when you're plus size, the water is the only thing that can hold you like that. You feel weightless.
You are at an advantage.
Right?
Yeah. Look at the whales. Look at the seals and stuff. All my plus size people get in the water.
It's interesting if there's someone who was I have 2% body fat. And it'll be it'd be 15 degrees, and I'll be cold, and you're like, how?
You don't die.
Yes, my blubber helped me. I was warm.
It does. You're sitting in the water, and it's holding you, and you're embracing you. You're weightless. You're for the first time, literally uplifted. And I'm like, do not bikini body my plus size people. I need them in the water.
Yes.
That shit is so good.
It is.
Anyway, so I think it's probably unfortunately. It's probably about all the time we have today. So I want to thank you so much for coming in. And it's good. We didn't get to talk about Black creatives, but that's good because it means you have to come back.
I will definitely be back. Yes.
This is the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM. You're in studio today with Eddie, Nani, Leah, and Octavious Jones. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
To close off, we have Can't Hold Me Down by Kano and Popcorn. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
Sending you all love.
Ciao.
Somebody to love. I'm thankful where I reach in life. Come and grow rough. Get the youth to fight the fight. Them can't hold me now. Can't hold me down. Them can't hold me now. Can't hold me down. Oh,
shot for a real one. I don't mean a gun finger, bust a real one. Them free butcher, we was raised on the real dons. Not all these Ross Clark little sums. Nah, black suit like I'm dressed for a killing. Stepping out with auntie, something fresh she be whipping. All black Range Rover, all black women. I bet the Daily Mail want Photoshop a spliffing. Ay, this one ain't got the summer run smash. Couple $100+ VAT, do your fucking quick maths. At a character to gas, but it's facts. Cause I was in Ionaparin Gas Club. You can ask Demon and you can ask D-Dubs. Representing East Tennessee for the C1s. I ain't a gangster, but I rave with them. We both pop 10 bottles of escapism.
I'm thankful. Where I reach in life, come and go rough. Get the youth to fight the fight. Them can't hold me now. Can't hold me down. Them can't hold me now. Can't hold me down. Oh, tell them a bad man thing and a yard man thing and a London thing. Boy, them want man feel, them no want man free, them no want man win. Them know them can't violate, can me have something where you.
That program was brought to you by Wellington Access Radio. Get your voice heard.
Thanks New Zealand On Air for funding accessmedia.nz.